President Trump is headed back to D.C. after visiting the nation's newest and most controversial migrant detention center, what the administration is calling Alligator Alcatraz because of its location in the Florida Everglades. The president spent time touring the heavy-duty tents, trailers, and temporary buildings that make up the facility. Critics are describing this as an inhumane makeshift prison camp on protected lands. Supporters see it as a national model for aggressively ramping up the president's deportation efforts. Let's get the latest from CNN's Priscilla Alvarez. So, Priscilla, talk to us about Trump's visit.
Well, this is a facility that is expected to hold up to 5,000 people. Of course, the administration has been seeking places where they can detain individuals that they are arresting and leaning on allies to do it. In this case, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, the president touted the facility multiple times over the course of both getting there and while he was touring the facility. Here's some of what he had to say.
This was a brilliant choice. I give the governor a lot of credit for using this piece of land. And in addition to that, it's on top of something that was already developed. It's an airport. You know, you have the runways, you have so it's already been developed. So it's not like you're dropping dirt right into the thing. There was zero movement of that. That was done many years ago because the airport's very old, but it was an abandoned railroad, an abandoned airport. And frankly, it's like perfect.
Now, they have been constructing soft-sided facilities. You can see that there as the president was touring. It's also still a pricey endeavor, costing around $450 million. The state of Florida will be able to seek reimbursements from FEMA as they continue to use this facility. But, Boris, this is really a visit that achieved three things for President Donald Trump. One, it allowed him to have that backdrop of this facility, this controversial migrant detention facility, as he continues to tout his hardline immigration policies. Number two, it helps with their needs of having detention beds, something that they could get far more of if that bill passes the House. But in the interim, helps them nonetheless as they try to ramp up immigration arrests. And three, something that the president talked about often over the course of his visit is that self-deportation, essentially trying to showcase something that is so miserable, in this case in the swampy Everglades, surrounded by alligators and pythons, that people who are in the country illegally will choose to leave on their own. Now, again, to that final point, again, this is a place that is located in the Everglades, has been surrounded by alligators, which is why they're calling it Alligator Alcatraz. And it is not just migrant rights groups that have been protesting this, but also environmentalist groups who say that this has no business on these lands. So certainly something that's been controversial, and where protesters were outside the facility saying as much earlier today.
Priscilla Alvarez, thank you so much for the update. Brianna?
Let's talk more now with Chad Wolf. He served as acting Homeland Security Secretary in the first Trump administration. He's now executive vice president of the America First Policy Institute, which is a think tank with deep ties to the Trump administration. Mr. Wolf, as we talk about this site that the president visited today, are you confident that there will only be, as the White House press secretary put it, illegal murderers, rapists, heinous criminals housed at this site, and no migrants with minor infractions or with no records at all?
Well, look, I think how DHS in the state of Florida uses that facility is going to be similar to all other facilities, which is they're targeting the worst of the worst. But again, all individuals that are eligible to be deported and are on that pathway to removal from the country go into a variety of detention facilities. And I suspect that you'll see a variety of folks housed in over 5,000 beds in this facility alone.
So the Washington Post analyzed numbers and found that the number of criminals and accused criminals arrested by ICE is up significantly, up 128% compared to a year ago. But the number of immigrants with no criminal record arrested and detained by ICE is up by more than 1,400%. So would you expect there then to be more of a mix like that in a facility like that or any other facility?
Of course. Again, we're talking about illegal aliens that again, don't have a legal right to remain in the United States, that are eligible to be removed. That's what this administration is doing. They've said time and again that they're going to focus on the worst, the criminal aliens, but that no one is exempt from the law. So as you do that and as you remove these individuals, all of them have to go into detention facilities. All of them need a bed in order to be lined up to then be put on a flight out of the country. And so this facility in Florida, just like facilities all around the country, they do this every day. ICE does this on a daily basis of not only arresting criminal aliens, but arresting other individuals that perhaps have overstayed a visa, that have done a number of other things that have made them ineligible to stay in the United States.
The talking point, though, here was from Trump and other officials was the worst of the worst were going to go. And he has said that he's working on a plan now to let farm workers, hotel workers, and other workers stay in the U.S. because he said today, quote, without those people, you're not going to be able to run your farm. He's talked about businesses as well. Is that just an admission by the president that the American economy relies on labor from undocumented immigrants and that they need work visas, even if they're here illegally, even if you are putting them in the same category as criminals who are here illegally?
Yeah, I think the president, my guess, and I'll let the president speak for himself, is trying to find that balance of making sure that you, again, you get the worst of the worst out of the country. You're removing those individuals that don't have a legal right to be here while making sure that you're continuing to sustain the U.S. economy in a variety of different areas, right? From ag to tourism and what it might be. So again, I'm not in the White House. And so the president and his advisors and others are weighing all these different considerations and are trying to come up, as you indicated and the president said, with some solution. We'll see what that looks like when the White House decides to roll that out. But absolutely, as you undertake a massive removal program and you try to deal with 4 years of a completely wide open border that the Biden administration left the Trump team, they're having to make a variety of considerations and a lot of different policy calls almost on a weekly basis. And the president's admission that he wants to do something for that agricultural workforce, for those farmers, is an indication of that.
But that's not new, right? Right, Mr. Wolf? I mean, has he been failed by his advisors if he's only learning now what policymakers, including Republicans, have known for decades, that undocumented immigrants are essential to the U.S. economy?
No, I don't. I mean, there's no indication that he just learned that today or this week, right? I mean,
Well,
these are
let me
conversations that
revisit
they've
the
been
number.
having
Well, let me
for some
revisit the
time.
numbers with you. 1,400%. That's compared to last year, the number of non-criminals who are being arrested by ICE. And then he has talked about how he has then been informed by farmers and those who own other businesses that they're having trouble. Which didn't come as a
Sure.
surprise
And
to
if
most
you
people
look at
who had looked at who knew anything about the workforce. They didn't actually need farmers to tell
And
them
again, if you
because
look
they
at the
could have
Biden
explained that.
administration, you'll see almost, and if you look at 4 years of the Biden administration, you'll see absolutely no one removed, right? Which is why we're in the crisis
That's not
that we
true,
are
and
in
you know
today,
that.
which is why the
You know
American
that.
people said,
That-
excuse me?
That's not true. You're saying that no one was
I
removed
literally
in
don't
4
think
years.
you understand what you're talking about here at all.
You're saying no
And so
one was removed
the
in
American
4
people
years,
decided
period.
to go a different approach. The American people decided that
Mr. Wolf, just to be
individuals
clear,
needed
you're
be
saying
removed.
no
And as
one
you
was removed. Can you just be clear? Explain what you're saying. No one was removed under the Biden
A
administration from the United States
historical low number.
who's undocumented. Sure, then
A
please try
historical
again.
low number of individuals removed from the interior of the country. The vast majority of removals from the Biden administration happened at the border. They were removing almost no one from the interior of the country. And the Trump administration and President Trump campaigned on this, and the American people put him in office to deal with the crisis of 4 years of the Biden administration. And that's what they're doing. That's why they're removing people. They're removing the worst of the worst, criminal aliens, as you've indicated. But again, they're not going to exempt all individuals from the law, right? So if you say, we're only going to remove criminal aliens and that's it, we're going to stop. Well, then you invite a whole class of individuals to come into the country and not to offend and say, well, you're not going to be removed.
But what's the message you're sending? If you work for a farm or you work for a furniture maker, you're fine?
And we saw that for 4 years under the Biden administration.
But
Just
what's
an
the incentive that you're sending, Mr.
just
Wolf?
wrong way to run the immigration system.
Okay, but then what's the message that you're sending if you say, essentially, let's work out a work visa program for you if you're here illegally, if you work for a farm or a furniture maker, the door is wide open for you?
Well, again, I don't know the contours of what the White House is putting together. I would say I would
Trump
need to
said
see that
a
to
system
understand
of signing them
what
up so
what
they
are
don't have to go.
proposing
Well, let me tell you
specifically.
here. Let me tell you what he's proposing: a system of signing them up so they don't have to go. They can be here legally. They can pay taxes and everything. They're not getting citizenship, but they get other things. I mean, how is that not a work visa program?
Again, you have work visas now, right? For the agricultural community, you have an H-2A visa that's unlimited. I think there's over 400,000 agricultural workers here today on that visa. Obviously, I think the industry, what we were hearing from that ag industry is they need more workers. They don't need less workers. They need more of those workers. So I think the administration is trying to figure out, I think there's also some behind the scenes works of how do you improve that H-2A system so that you can bring more vetted individuals into the country. I think what the Trump administration is trying to deal with now is for the illegal population that is here today, what do you do with them, and can you get them into the workforce legally? And we'll have to see what they actually propose.
All right, Chad Wolf, thank you so much for being with us.